The British High Commission in Namibia has been active in supporting the country's drive to sustainable development. This includes many areas of cooperation such as education and skills development, improving the local business environment to attract foreign investment, and access to information, just to mention a few. Britain has also been known to share past experiences with Namibia, allowing it to make strides on important frameworks such as the public-private partnership, a key strategy towards the country reaching its Vision 2030. Namibian Head of State President Jacob left for the UK over the weekend and is expected to deliver remarks at the House of Lords in London as part of the Bush CEO Business Summit that takes place tomorrow. The High Commissioner Jo Lomas' term will come to an end next month. She sat with me to expand on her experience in Namibia. Good evening, viewers, and welcome to One Exclusive. I'm your host, Joseph Sheefeni. I'm joined in studio by the British High Commissioner to Namibia, Jo Lomas. Jo Lomas, it's great to have you on the show.
Good evening.
My first question, as your time at the British High Commission comes to an end, how would you describe your term as the High Commissioner?
Well, first of all, this was my first African posting. I couldn't have chosen a better one, I have to say. What I've really enjoyed seeing here is how the Namibian government and the people are really united, trying to bring people out of poverty and inequality. So my role has really been to support that, do whatever we can to help develop Namibia's economy. It's been fascinating posting. I'm sadly leaving in November, but I will have somebody coming to replace me in January. Another woman, I'm glad to say, so that will be 3 women in a row working as British High Commissioner here in Namibia.
We have only been here for 2 years. We're actually more accustomed to official representatives from other countries staying here for much longer than that.
Well, I serve at my government's whim, and they have asked me to go to another posting. I'll be staying in Africa, I'm very pleased to say. But for us, it's very important to have continuity, which is why I'm having somebody come in so quickly after I've left.
What have been the highlights for you, both professionally and personally, during your time in office? As I mentioned, trying to look to where we, the UK, can help support Namibia's growth. So one very practical example is we've got lots of experience delivering public-private partnerships. So we've been working with the Ministry of Finance to help train and to help the draft legislation that was going through. That's an area where the UK has got lots of experience, good and bad, and we've been working with the Namibians to ensure you learn from our mistakes rather than repeat them. There are many other areas we've been working together. We've sent about 25 Sheefeni scholars to study master's degrees while I've been here. We've worked with UNICEF to help prevent child online sexual exploitation. We're working with another women's group to prevent harmful cultural practices. So really wide range of work and really rewarding work as well. On a personal level, it's been the most amazing posting to be. You have such a beautiful country here. It's a very good for small children. I've got a 7-year-old, and she is now an expert Namibian wildlife spotter, so she has really thrived here. We've enjoyed the camping in your beautiful landscapes. I don't think I'm going to be able to go back to Europe to camp there. So all in all, it's been both professionally and personally, it's been a really rewarding and enriching experience for me and my family. We know that you have worked closely with local stakeholders in terms of strengthening areas such as access to information. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
That's right. So I'm quite passionate about access to information and about openness and transparency in government. And when I arrived just over 2 years ago, I was really pleased to see His Excellency President Jacob was also keeping openness and transparency very much on his agenda. So we've been working with some local stakeholders here, supporting them where we can. The reason I think it's important, and especially important for developing countries like Namibia, is it enables citizens to hold their government to account. So if citizens know what sort of education and health and road services they are entitled to,
And if they know how much money is given to those services, and if they are able to see whether or not those services are being delivered, then they can hold ministers and officials to account. And that can only be a good thing. And I think it really helps drive down corruption as well, because if all the information is out there, it's much more difficult to have any kind of dodgy practices. So for every country, I think it's really important. And I have a favourite example actually from the UK, where it's really worked for us. So a few years ago, we decided to publish the mortality rates for cardiac surgery. That enabled patients to decide which hospitals to go to, which doctors they might want to use. It enabled local authorities and hospital trusts to see what was working and what wasn't working. So just through publishing those figures, our mortality rates have dropped by a third. That's thousands of people whose lives have been saved simply by printing that information. So in many different ways, having access to information can save lives and can improve lives. And that's why I'm so passionate about it.
When it comes to access to information, Namibia has been ranked first when it comes to press freedom in all of Africa. How important is this for a developing country such as Namibia, in your views?
I see it as two different things. So yes, I mean, Namibia has a very good reputation when it comes to freedom of press here, and so that's a great thing. Obviously, the press needs to have more access to information, as well as the citizens. I think the press here would say they would like to have more information on statistics and delivery, and you see that in the papers sometimes. I think citizens themselves also want to have more access to information. So I see those as complementary demands.
I want us to look into one of my favorite subjects when it comes to Britain, which is Brexit.
Brexit, yes, of course.
Can you tell us, for some of our viewers out there, they might not have a clear understanding on it, what it means and why negotiations are still ongoing?
Sure. Okay, I'll start from the beginning. So we had a referendum in June last year. As you know, the British people voted to leave the EU. So between June, or of course, immediately after the referendum, we had a change of Prime Minister and a change of cabinet. And in the time from June to March this year, the government was really conducting discussions, having internal debates as to how we take this quite momentous decision forward. In March this year, we officially notified the EU that we would be leaving. That sort of started the clock. So we now have 2 years from March 2017 to negotiate our departure from the EU. So we will be leaving in March 2019. Now, in that time, we have now started some technical negotiations. These happen in Brussels every few weeks or so. What's on the table at the moment is some of the real fundamentals. So, for example, how much should the UK keep on paying to the EU? What should happen to EU citizens in the UK and British citizens in Europe? And what should happen to the border between Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK, and between the Republic of Ireland? So those discussions are ongoing. Once we've got broad agreement on there, we're going to move to trade discussions, and that's really key to our future relationship. As you know, there's a free trade between the European Union, and we're really keen to maintain that. So those discussions are ongoing. Just last month, the Prime Minister made a very important speech in Florence about how she sees Brexit going forward. She basically said that the UK would like to have a 2-year transition period. So from March 19 to March 21, we would, although we wouldn't be a member, we would still act as if we were in the EU, have the benefits, keep on paying, and that enables a smooth transition. Because what none of us wants is, a cliff edge or disruption to trade within the EU or to our partners. So the negotiations continue. If we get to March 19, it is possible to extend. All members have to agree on that. So there are a few different scenarios, but our objective is to make sure things go smoothly, that we have a deal, and that's in the UK's interest, but also in the EU's interest, because nobody wants this to fail, basically.
You speak of the EU, but what about third world countries? How would they be affected by Brexit? In particular, the relation.
Sure. I mean, the really important thing is about our trade relationships here with other countries. Here in Namibia, we're in a good situation. So as part of SACU, Namibia has an agreement with the EU. It's called the Economic Partnership Agreement, and it was signed, has been implemented since last year. The good thing about that is there is an agreement in place. So our plan, our proposal to SACU and its members is that we take that agreement, what we call transitionally adopt it to make a UK SACU agreement. While we're a member of the EU, we're not allowed to negotiate our own deals, but we can, it's almost a cut and paste job. Not quite as simple as that, but we're going to adopt that agreement so that when it comes to March 19, we've got everything in place to continue our trade smoothly. The reaction from the SACU Secretariat and the SACU members, including Namibia, has been really positive because it's in everyone's interest to keep the trade flowing smoothly. We're going to have some technical talks just this week with SACU members in Johannesburg, so it really is progressing quite quickly. And we're very keen that this works. I mean, we very much like our Namibian beef and grapes in the UK, and we definitely want that trade to continue.
So Namibia is a trade partner with the UK. We export beef and grapes to the UK. Is that what you're saying?
So Namibia's main exports are beef, grapes and charcoal. And you have a real niche market there in the UK, and we want to keep that going. So there's no reason that shouldn't keep going, but we just need to make sure that the technical preparations and amendments are made to enable that to keep on going after March 19.
So local exporters here have no need to worry about it?
No, they shouldn't worry. And in fact, we've met a lot of them, or we've met a lot of the trade forums to explain how this should work. They're very enthusiastic. So I'm very positive that we can come to an agreement because it's in all of our interests to make it work.
How is the High Commission coming on board and ensuring that Namibia is actually attractive enough for potential investors out there?
Our focus has been on supporting Namibia to develop an open business environment. So the President, I know, is very keen to attract foreign investment. He's been to London a couple of times to talk to foreign investors, and we know that Namibia needs investment if you're going to build up your infrastructure here. So I think where we have tried to help is in explaining what helps attract investors and what doesn't. And having, as I mentioned, with public-private partnerships, having the right legislation and administration in place helps attract investors. There's also got to be a clear reasons for investors to come here, so offering them the right environment. One of the more controversial issues we've been dealing with here over the last 2 years is the NEF, the Economic Equitable Empowerment Framework. And I think everybody here really understands what the Namibian government is trying to achieve. I mean, it's really need to drive down poverty and inequality here, and we really understand that. On the same, at the same time, we need to make sure that investors are encouraged to come to Namibia. There are probably 100 countries that they could choose from, so they need to choose Namibia. And having the right legislation in place that doesn't scare them off is really important. So we think there's a balance there between making sure that Namibians have good jobs and are on the board of companies and have the ability to have more ownership of companies, and then a balance between making sure that that legislation doesn't actually discourage investors, because the last thing that Namibia wants is for investors to leave the country or not to come here in the first place. So on behalf of British business, we've been talking to the government about where that balance might lie in helping support Namibia, but making sure that investors still come.
You mentioned some of which challenges that might discourage potential investors coming to Namibia. But since last year, we've seen our head of state going to America, and some investors have shown interest in coming over. But when it comes to Britain, UK rather, we've only seen so far only beef and grapes. What are we looking at here in the future?
Okay. Well, the main exports from Namibia to the UK are beef and grapes, but the main British interests here, where we've been investing for quite a few years, is mostly around mining and in the oil and gas industry. So some quite heavy commitments there, and we have other companies who are interested in coming in, particularly around mining. But I've put quite a lot of effort into talking to British companies about the other opportunities here, the other opportunities to invest, particularly in infrastructure, in rail and road and ports and airports, where we know Namibia's got quite high ambitions, but there is a lack of money. So I'm keen that British companies look to see where they can support Namibia's development and investment.
So when you speak of mining, you speak of companies such as De Beers?
De Beers, yes, and the Rossing uranium mine, and then a few other smaller mines as well. Copper, gold, zinc. There's quite a few British listed mining operations that are working very successfully here with Namibian partners.
We've been facing a huge problem in Namibia, which is poaching. What do you make of our efforts in terms of countering this problem?
Yeah, the British government is very interested in the illegal wildlife trade from many different angles. We obviously believe that in its own right it's really important to protect some of these iconic species, and illegal wildlife trade is often is part of organised crime. It leads to money laundering and illegal financial flows. So in many different ways it's really important that we tackle this. We're delighted that at the end of next year we're going to be hosting an illegal wildlife trade conference in London. Namibia will of course be invited. We've got a key interest here. I think from our point of view, we accept there are very different ways to tackle the illegal wildlife crime around the world, but particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. Namibia has got a really good story to tell. Your use of conservancies and use of local people to help protect species is a really good example, a really good story, I think. So the idea about the conference will be to share examples of how we can all work together to protect wildlife and to stop these flows, mostly to Asia, but also to other places. And we work with the Namibian and other governments to see where we can help support financially or through lobbying and influencing, how we can help you support your wildlife populations.
If I want to go to Britain, would I need a visa?
If you're just going for a visit, then I'm delighted to say that you don't. If you want to go to be a student or to settle for a while, go for a long period, then you do, and you can apply online for that. But just going for a visit for a holiday, I'm glad to say that you don't.
Awesome. All right, let's talk about the time when you're actually back home. If someone back home asks you about Namibia as a tourism destination, what would you tell them?
I say you must come. We have had quite a few friends visiting us since we've been here. They've all come with an image of Namibia in their mind, sand dunes, perhaps some elephants, and then they come here and they see the reality, the wildlife and the dunes and the landscapes, and their minds are blown. They've all said it's been a trip of a lifetime. So positive experiences, and I would certainly say to anybody I know, go to Namibia. I don't know anybody who's been disappointed. So you have a fabulous country here to offer, and I think tourism is just going to grow and grow.
Would you consider visiting Namibia again as a tourist?
Of course. I always think that when you go on a posting, you need to leave one part unexplored on a personal level. And for us, we've travelled 40,000 kilometres around Namibia since we've been here. We've been to Fish River Canyon, Zambezi, the coast, the north, Etosha. We haven't yet been right to the far northwest, to the Kunene region, and so that's my excuse to come back. I will come back and see the Kunene region, as well as re-exploring lots of the other beautiful places you have here.
So which places did you find exciting?
Oh, you're going to test me now. What have I enjoyed? I mean, you can't beat the Namibian desert. It is unique. So the Sossusvlei area, but many of the other areas around there have been absolutely spectacular. And seeing the wildlife against that backdrop, there is nowhere else in the world that you can see that. And of course you have the most amazing wildlife up in the Waterberg and Etosha as well, particularly around the waterholes. It really is unique. And I think in the UK, people tend to think of going to Kenya or South Africa first. Those countries are more familiar. But my message to people is go to Namibia. There's much more there.
The upcoming Commonwealth Summit in London later next year, can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. I mean, the Commonwealth in general is probably still a little bit misunderstood. For me, it's all about having a network. And you have 53 members. You have everything from the very small island states to the large countries like Canada, Australia. You have developed countries, developing. But because we're members of the Commonwealth and because we have these shared values of democracy and good governance, we have a lot in common. So it's a fantastic network for people to work on their futures and sort of make those links and improve trade and many other things. In terms of the Commonwealth Summit, which is going to be in April next year, We're very proud to host it. Her Majesty the Queen is going to play quite a major role. She's opened up Windsor Castle and Buckingham Palace for this occasion. And we're very delighted that His Excellency the President is going to be there. The theme is going to be working towards a common future. And that means in all senses, so a more prosperous future, a more secure and a more fair future. Now, that's quite a broad theme. Between now and April, we in the Secretariat will be talking to Commonwealth members about what they particularly want to discuss, how they want to narrow it down, how we can come up with tangible results that benefit all Commonwealth countries. So very much looking forward to it and very glad that Namibia is going to play an important role.
So basically it's going to be the sharing of ideas and solutions between countries?
Yes, it's sharing ideas and solutions. It's also trying to come up with practical assistance and help. So people say, well, what does Commonwealth do for Namibia? So there was a project, for example, it's finished now, but just recently where there was Commonwealth technical assistance to help develop magistrates' courts in Namibia. And every year, Namibia students benefit from 7 or 8 Commonwealth scholarships to go to any Commonwealth country. We've got a young person from Namibia will go to the Commonwealth Youth Summit ahead of the Commonwealth Summit. So there's lots of ways in which Namibia benefits and lots of opportunities to grasp and some tangible results as well.
And I assume not only Namibia but also other African countries as well?
Absolutely, yes. They all benefit in similar but different ways. I mean, different countries have different needs and different requirements. So those are all fed in and we try and find areas where we all have a common wish to work together and a common need.
All right. Is there anything else that you might like to add?
Well, just to say, I mean, we're very sorry to be leaving. It's been quite an amazing experience. I would like to thank the Namibian people for their hospitality and for welcoming us to their beautiful country. And as I've said, we'll be back.
All right. So what about your last day here, Namibia?
My last day. Well, I'll be here until the end of November. And my successor will come in January. Luckily for us, of course, December and January is a very quiet period here. But we are very keen to ensure continuity, so there won't be a very big gap. I will go and do some training for my next job, as we do. But as I say, I'm staying on the continent, and I very much look forward to dealing with Namibia in a different capacity.
High Commissioner.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining me. All right. And that is all from our side. Do not forget to share your views with us on our social media pages or by texting them to the number 555. SMS will cost you $1 Namibian. For me, Sheefeni, it's goodbye.